17,000 American combat troops are quietly moving into position around Iran, and the window for diplomacy may already be closing. Welcome to Global Conflict Feed. I'm David, and today we are going deep into one of the most consequential military buildups since the Iraq War. Because what is happening in the Persian Gulf right now is not a drill, not a bluff, and not a routine rotation. It is a deliberate, calculated assembly of lethal force on a scale that demands your full attention. Here is what we know, and here is what nobody is saying out loud yet. Let us begin with the hardware. On the 27th of March, 2026, U.S. Central Command confirmed that sailors and Marines aboard the USS Tripoli had arrived in theater. The Tripoli is an amphibious assault ship, not a carrier sitting safely offshore, but a vessel engineered to put warriors onto hostile beaches fast. It carries roughly 3,500 personnel, drawn from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit. These are not peacekeepers. They are trained for amphibious landings, rapid terrain seizure, and close-quarters combat in contested environments. But the Tripoli is only the opening move. A 2nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, the 11th MEU, embarked aboard the USS Boxer, is approximately 1 week behind. When both units fully arrive, the United States will have close to 5,000 combat-ready Marines in the region, supported by F-35 stealth fighters, Osprey vertical takeoff aircraft, attack helicopters, and artillery. All of it within striking distance of the Iranian coastline. And then there's the 82nd Airborne Division. The Pentagon has confirmed that between 2,000 and 3,000 paratroopers from the 82nd are being deployed to the Middle East. Based out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the 82nd is the Army's designated rapid response force. They move by air. They can establish a boots-on-the-ground presence inside a hostile country within hours. These are not soldiers positioned to hold a perimeter. They are offensive instruments, built for speed, surprise, and shock action. Now here is where the numbers get truly staggering. The Wall Street Journal reported that the Pentagon is actively weighing the deployment of an additional 10,000 ground troops on top of everything already in motion. Add it together, and you are looking at approximately 17,000 newly deployed forces, sitting on top of the 40,000 to 50,000 U.S. personnel already stationed across the region as part of Operation Epic Fury, the joint American-Israeli campaign that launched on the 28th of February. So the question every serious analyst is asking is this: what exactly is the plan? Because Secretary of State Marco Rubio was pressed on this directly, and his answer told us more than he perhaps intended. When a reporter asked how a force of this size could be anything other than preparation for a ground operation, Rubio chose his words with surgical care. He said the United States was ahead of schedule on dismantling Iran's military capabilities, its missile programs, drone infrastructure, naval assets, air power. He insisted ground troops were not necessary to achieve U.S. objectives. But then he added one phrase that changed the entire framing. The president must be prepared for multiple contingencies. Maximum optionality. He did not deny that ground operations were being planned. Denial was conspicuously absent. Then President Trump amplified a specific Fox News segment, not because he was appearing on it, but because that segment was making the case for why U.S. ground forces might be required. Not for a full-scale occupation, for something targeted, something surgical. And the specific objective being discussed was uranium. Here is the background you need to understand this. Iran's Isfahan uranium conversion facility was struck during the opening phase of Operation Epic Fury. But here is the problem that keeps military planners awake at night. Bombing a facility does not neutralize the material inside it. Analysts believe Iran had stockpiled approximately 460 kilograms of highly enriched uranium at Isfahan. Some of it is now beneath rubble. Rubble is not a containment solution. According to analysis published at the end of March, that quantity of enriched uranium could theoretically be used to construct up to 11 nuclear devices: dirty bombs, warheads, sophisticated delivery systems. The nightmare scenarios are not theoretical. They are documented. That is why special forces with training in nuclear material security have been moving into position. But here is the strategic problem that no one on American television seems to be confronting directly. The moment that Fox News segment aired, the moment the President of the United States publicly amplified the uranium extraction scenario, Iranian intelligence was watching. They monitor American media in real time. Their analysts speak English. The second Isfahan became a publicly named target on primetime television, the element of operational surprise for any extraction mission effectively dissolved. Iran has since had days to respond. Days to lay anti-personnel devices, anti-armor systems, and remotely triggered explosives around that facility. Any U.S. force moving on Isfahan now enters an environment the adversary has had time to prepare, not to win a conventional firefight, but to inflict enough casualties to shift American public opinion. That is a very different mission profile than what was telegraphed on television, which may mean Isfahan is not actually the primary target at all. Let us talk about Karg Island. This small coral formation, roughly 8 square miles, sits about 26 kilometers off Iran's southwestern coast. It processes approximately 90% of Iran's oil exports. It is the financial artery of the entire Iranian war machine. Destroy Karg Island's operational capacity, and you have severed Tehran's revenue at the source. U.S. airstrikes have already hit military infrastructure there, including the airfield. Iran has responded by dramatically fortifying the island, anti-personnel mines, anti-armor systems, shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles, and an expanded troop presence. Iran's parliament speaker stated plainly that Iranian forces were prepared and waiting for American soldiers to arrive on the ground. Those are strong words, but they also confirm what intelligence reporting has been suggesting. Iran is not simply defending. Iran is setting deliberate traps. And yet military analysts believe Iranian forces on Karg Island could be overcome in the initial assault. The real danger is what comes after the battle is won. The complex explosive devices, the booby-trapped infrastructure, the asymmetric threats that accumulate over days and weeks of occupation rather than showing up in the initial casualty count. There is a third scenario that analysts consider potentially the most achievable target of all: clearing the Strait of Hormuz. Think about what is at stake here. Approximately 90% of all crude oil flowing toward Asia moves through this single choke point. Iran has effectively blockaded it. Global oil prices have surged. The economic pressure radiating outward from that blockade is being felt on every continent. Iranian officials have even threatened to expand the blockade toward the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, the passageway between Yemen and the Horn of Africa, if American forces strike Iranian coastal positions. Marine forces, analysts say, could execute helicopter-borne raids targeting Iranian missile batteries, mine stockpiles, and fast-attack boat infrastructure along the strait. This is a more distributed operation than seizing a single island, harder to pre-trap. And the strategic payoff, reopening global shipping lanes, would be enormous, both militarily and diplomatically. Now here is the part of this story that does not get enough attention. Diplomacy is actually happening, even while the guns are moving. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif publicly announced his country's willingness to facilitate negotiations. Pakistani officials have confirmed they conveyed a ceasefire proposal from Iran to the American side. Iran's foreign minister met with counterparts from Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt in Islamabad for 2 days of talks at the close of March. Multiple channels are open. President Trump confirmed on the 26th of March that he was pausing strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure for 10 days until the 6th of April to create space for ceasefire talks. That deadline is now upon us. Military experts suggest the entire buildup is best understood as coercive leverage, a demonstration designed to force serious negotiations rather than a committed decision for war. The message being sent to Tehran is direct. Negotiate with substance, or face options you cannot stop. But those same experts issue a warning. As troop numbers grow, as heavier formations replace rapid response units, the operational and political momentum becomes increasingly difficult to reverse. At some point, a buildup develops its own logic, and that logic is now intersecting with something happening inside Iran itself, something the regime fears in some ways even more than the forces assembling offshore. The protests that began on the 28th of December, 2025, started in Tehran's Grand Bazaar. Shopkeepers went on strike as Iran's currency collapsed to over 1.4 million rials per dollar. Within days, the demonstrations had reached all 31 provinces. Millions of Iranians were in the streets demanding not just economic relief, but an end to the Islamic Republic itself. The regime's response was brutal. Credible estimates place the death toll from the crackdown at somewhere between 5,000 and 20,000 people. On the 8th of January, Iranian authorities cut the internet, not throttled, not filtered, cut, reducing national connectivity to approximately 1% of normal levels. As of early April, that blackout has been ongoing for more than 90 days. 92 million people sealed off from the world. The regime acknowledges this is costing the economy tens of millions of dollars per day. They are paying that price deliberately, because in their calculation, Iranians communicating freely with each other and with the outside world is a greater threat than economic self-destruction. People have been arrested for possessing Starlink terminals. People have been executed for it. This is not the behavior of a confident government. This is the behavior of a regime that is genuinely afraid of its own population. Meanwhile, 13 American service members have been killed during Operation Epic Fury and nearly 300 wounded. 2 KC-135 tankers were struck in a recent Iranian missile and drone attack on Prince Sultan Air Base. An E-3 Sentry airborne early warning aircraft was damaged. This is not a bloodless campaign at altitude. Americans are dying. Iran's proxy network is also activating. Houthi forces in Yemen have threatened to resume attacks on commercial shipping. Iraqi Shia militias affiliated with Tehran have declared readiness to join the conflict. The war is threatening to go regional in ways that would reshape the entire Middle East. So where does this leave us? 4 variables are now moving simultaneously and in real time. First, the pace of ceasefire diplomacy being brokered through Pakistan. Second, whether Iran makes meaningful concessions on the Strait of Hormuz before the 6th of April deadline expires. Third, whether President Trump approves any of the ground operation plans the Pentagon has prepared. Fourth, whether the Iranian regime can contain its internal crisis long enough to negotiate from a position of credibility. If diplomacy succeeds, the 17,000 troops become leverage that was never triggered, a show of force that achieved its purpose without a shot fired on land. That has happened in history before. If it fails, the region stands at the edge of something not witnessed since 2003. 17,000 boots entering a theater where the adversary has spent weeks laying traps, where IEDs, drones, loitering munitions, and missiles are pre-positioned, where an internet blackout makes real-time ground truth assessment nearly impossible from the outside. The uranium under rubble at Isfahan is real. The mines on Karg Island are real. The 92 million Iranians cut off from the world are real. The deployments are real. And the decisions being made in the coming days will define this region for a generation. Global Conflict Feed will be here to break every development as it happens. If you found this analysis valuable, and I believe you did, hit that like button right now and make sure you are subscribed to Global Conflict Feed so you do not miss the next update. Tap the notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to understand what is actually happening in the Persian Gulf, because this story is not slowing down. It is accelerating. And the next move may come before any of us are ready.